All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again for another episode of the Business Breakdown with your host, Dena Davis from Davis Hill LLC. And we have another exciting and special topic to talk about today. And you hear me say this a lot. I always talk about this is my favorite. I really love this. And you know what? It's true. This is me. I love business. I love all parts of business, but I have some areas that I have a little bit more affinity to, and this is one of them that we're going to talk about today is really thinking about how do you establish and grow your online presence, which really is getting fundamentally and smack dab in the middle of your marketing. So I have a very, very special guest with me here today, Miss Karen Leonard from IGV. If you can please introduce yourself and please give us a little bit of information about what you do.
Well, hello, Dina, and what a thrill it is for me to be on your show today. Thank you for inviting me. So IGV is a website design, hosting, and digital marketing agency. We're actually celebrating our 20th year in business,
Awesome.
and we're located here in Macedonia, Ohio, and we help businesses establish a presence online. We help them secure that online presence and maintain the site. And we also help them drive traffic to that website by means of our marketing services.
Absolutely. Well, everything you talked about, depending on who you ask, it's either something that's very foreign to them and they have no idea what you're talking about, but they know they need it. Or, we have the other end of the spectrum of people that's like, oh, you know what? You're just doing social media posts. Like, I can just get my daughter to post up things on the website, or I can just have my so and so do these types of things. So I definitely like to get into that as we continue through the conversation, Karen. But if you could just give me a little bit of insight, like as I'm a business owner. I have again a lot of things that I'm considering, and marketing should be one of my top three. It really should. And if it's not, I don't know how you're doing it, but and again, when we say marketing, it's going to vary for different people, and that whole online presence in today's world is key. I mean, when people search you and go to look for services, they're immediately going to start to Google you.
That's the first thing we know. Google this. Did you look it up? Did you Google it? That's always the starting point. So
Absolutely.
there's that big question of what are they going to find? Are they going to find you? Right?
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of people think that, oh, if you just simply Google it, you will find the exact same things as another person who also Googled the same thing. And so that's why I talk about, like, again, people think, oh, this is no, just Google it. Well, I Googled it and I didn't get that result. Why is that, Karen? Like, why wouldn't you find, if you Googled me, and why wouldn't my name pop up right away, or the information that I want you to see?
Well, there's multiple things, multiple factors that play a role in that. First of all, Google has multiple servers. So when you Google and I Google, we may be querying two different databases, number one. Number two, our results really depend on our location. Google likes to serve up local results first, primarily, especially being that if I'm searching for a mechanic or someone to service me, I prefer to find someone locally. So that plays a huge factor in what results. Even if you're on your cell phone, Google knows where you're searching from. You've got GPS on your phone, not GPS, but is it GPS that picks up where you're located,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
So Google knows where you're searching for, and they're serving up relevant content. That's really what it is, relevant content related to where you're located, where you're searching from.
Absolutely. So let's dispel one myth I'm sure we can get on the table right away. Everyone's Google search is not the same. You can't just say, just Google me without really putting in, again, the thought and the planning behind how your presence is going to show up. And so, do you want to maybe talk about a little bit within Google? Are there certain things that you do to help the person's presence of their business to be able to come forward more when people are searching for things?
Absolutely. Especially if you want to show up locally, you should have a Google My Business account. It's free. There's no reason why you wouldn't have one. You go on to Google My Business, you create the account. If you don't have a listing already, that's what you're doing. If you do have a listing, then you're claiming that listing. And then you're updating that listing, populating it with your logo, pictures relating to your business and services. Give them an idea of what they will see when they come to your facility. It should list your services, your contact information, of course, should be accurate, your hours of operation. And then there's also some COVID related new features that Google My Business added to that. Like, for example, are you currently open to the public? Is a mask required? Google really tries to set people's expectations on what they can expect when they do business with that company. And you just want to make sure that you're showing up, everything is accurate when you show up. That's the first step.
Absolutely. And so I think about that also because I'm sure we'll start to get into this spider web because we're talking about online presence and there's so many different ways and places that you show up online. So again, we're staying a little focused here on the Google side of things because that's usually a lot of places where people go first. Some of the other platforms we'll get into, again, they're going to be maybe more audience specific. But when you start at the very, very beginning, do you even have an online presence?
That's a good question because, as I mentioned, you're creating that Google My Business listing, but once they find your listing, do you have a website for them to click through and find out more about your company? So that's a really good question. If you don't, that's definitely something you want to take care of. A business card will not do in today's day and age.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because I hear that especially from a lot of small business owners or people getting started out. And then again, there's different types of businesses. Some people are independent consultants. We have companies, we have storefronts, we have all kinds of different things that we do to run our business. But I still get this question quite a bit where a lot of people, they still don't have a website. So, when you think about that, it's kind of like, again, there's always organic, there's fork traffic, there's word of mouth, there's referrals, but how far can that take you in today's world with everything that we're dealing with that's digital?
Let's say it can take you out of business.
Mm.
And that's what people are struggling with today, because especially amidst this pandemic, someone that didn't have a website before and they were relying on foot traffic, what have they been doing since the pandemic hit? If they weren't thinking of going ahead and putting one in place, then they're really suffering because they don't have that foot traffic anymore to rely on.
Right. And then not knowing even how to get your business established online. Usually, most of us start with the website, and then other things link you back to the website or will complement off of the website that you build. But, I think about this, and I want to take even just a step further back from just like even the basic beginning, because when you have someone and they don't even have a website, what are some of the things that you do? There's a lot of planning here. So there's where I'm going.
Mm.
There's a lot of planning and decisions on what does your website look like? What do you want it to do? How does it support you engaging with your customers and or converting? So it's a lot that goes into just the decisions of what to put in and the type of website you need. And so maybe give us a little insight. What are some of the things that someone would do when they're starting to think about getting their online presence established?
Well, the first thing is to set the proper expectations for your website. Really and truly, It's another sales staff. That's really what it is. So in that role, what exactly is that person supposed to do? Generate leads for you, right? Or service your customers with whatever information they need. So let's take the first part, generate leads for you. What exactly would one of your prospective customers need to know, or what issues, what are their pain points um, when they visit your site? What are the problems you are solving? That should be obvious when they land on your site, that you have the solution for that, helping them to feel like they are in the right place. Now, of course, it takes some forethought, right? Some of the basic pages that your website should consist of course, is your homepage. There is your products page, or pages that detail your services. Then you've got the About Us page, and then you've got the Contact Us page. Now, that's your foundation. There are some other pages that you may decide to add later on, like maybe a careers page, maybe a frequently asked page. These are all adjustments that you make along the way to address the needs of your visitors to your site. Okay, now that landing page, it should not be cluttered with too much information, but like I said, it should help them to feel like they're in the right place and encourage them to continue through a funnel. Your services should also address what exactly is the service that you offer. It should also speak to how is it going to help them, and what steps do they need to take in order to take advantage of this particular service.
And that's interesting too, because you just made me think about a bunch of things I need to fix on my website.
We're always making adjustments. We're always making adjustments. You never get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm there. I've done everything. The site is perfect, because our audience is constantly changing. Their needs are constantly changing. So you've got to adapt.
And I'm glad you said that, because again, I think when we're starting about the folks, and some of these people are already in business, so it's not like these are always brand new businesses, but it's thinking again about establishing that online presence. And when you think about that, just the whole aspect of what do you want that site to do? People say, I just need a site. For what? What do you want the site to do? And when you start to get into those questions, I think I would assume that at some point people start to realize that it's a little bit more to this than kind of, getting my teenage daughter to put up a site or, answer a few Facebook posts, and just that whole thing, like you said, is your website is not this thing you do once. It's something that it should be alive, and it should be an integral part of what you do to run your business.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Never do we say, I need an employee. What's that employee going to do? I don't know. I just need to pay somebody. No.
Well, they do say that actually, because I get those calls in HR.
Oh, really? I just need to pay somebody?
Well, what they'll typically say is, I want them to do all these things, and I only want to pay them this much.
Oh, well.
So you're kind of asking for things for free in a roundabout way. And I'm like, well, that those people want money typically for what they do for you. But yeah, absolutely. That's my thing as well. And I usually see how they work out. Usually not very good.
No.
For all parties. But again, that website, just kind of getting started and just really thinking about, what are some of the things that someone might want to consider, what do they want the website to do? And we're just on websites. We're not even into any other parts of your online presence, which we'll get into a couple segments here in just a few. But just in general, it's not about just putting up that information and saying, oh, here's how you can contact me. Because I think sometimes people think the website is the business card. And they're just like, I just have to have it so I'm here and you can get in touch with me, which I'm sure we'll find out here shortly why that's not a good strategy to subscribe to. But we've got to take a quick break. So we'll be right back and we'll continue our discussion about online presence with the Business Breakdown. All right. Thank you once again for joining us for another episode of the Business Breakdown with your host, Dena Davis. And I'm here again with my guest, Karen Leonard from IGV. And we are talking about your online presence of your business. So, Karen, we were talking a little bit about websites. But again, that's like the first thing that we see. And we talked about how some people think of the website as your business card. Maybe can you talk a little bit about why that's not the right way to view your website? And then maybe some of the other things that it helps you to build out within your online presence structure.
Well, it goes back to, remember when I said the website should be considered part of your sales team, right? Anytime you send a sales staff out to meet with a customer, or even just to speak with a customer online, there are certain things, or not a customer, I should say, a potential customer. There are certain things that they need to share with that customer in order to convert them. I keep on saying customer, they're a prospect. There are certain things they need to share with that prospect in order to convert them to a customer successfully. Like, for example, it could be some success stories, or it can be some of your work, some of your products. How does it work? They may have questions. So these are some of the things that your website should be addressing. It's not a project where you exclude the sales team. Definitely, you've got to understand that sales process to make sure that the website is in line with your sales team.
Now, what if I don't have a sales team? What if that's me?
Well, then use the sales process, and that's what you would be speaking towards. It's not just a business card, because you handing your business card to a prospective client does not get you the business.
Absolutely.
In most cases.
Yeah, it goes into a stack. I think I have probably a stack of them somewhere here too.
I have one of those too.
Yeah, and I think that to me, one of the biggest things that I think is important out of our discussion is times have changed a lot. And I think we still have people either in business that haven't always been able to learn or keep up with some of the changes of how we market, or I say get things done. Or you have people coming in wanting to start businesses, and you're kind of using some of the old school thoughts of how you do that. And I kind of run into a lot of people, ironically enough, with what I do. They're wanting help in all kinds of different areas of their business. And when you talk about marketing, they want flyers and brochures and business cards.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, well, what are you going to do with that? They're like, what do you mean? Like, I need flyers, brochures, and a business card. Like, that's the suite that you're told you need, or some people think that that's all they need. How do you help those people to really realize the reality of what this looks like today?
Just to emphasize that point, to the need to come out of the dark ages, we're going to call it that. I was speaking with an IT company where that was his process some years ago, and it's still his marketing process today. As a matter of fact, do you know what a Rolodex is?
Yes.
That's before your time. Do you?
I've heard of them. Yes.
Okay.
I might have seen one or two in passing.
He had one, and he referred to it, and he was sharing with me one of his challenges where a lot of the businesses that he serviced have left and has gone to his competitor. They've forgotten about him. Okay. And now he's servicing some residential clients. But the fact is that through my discussion with him, I realized that as time went on, his existing customers were searching online and not finding him. He still doesn't have a website. Yes, IT company does not have a website.
Mhm.
And as a result, over time, they have forgotten about him. And as a result, they went to his competition, and that's who's servicing them today. Now, he's at the point where he's saying, you know what, I'm close to retirement age anyhow. I don't know how long more I'm going to continue with this. But that is what can happen to us if we do not keep up with trends, and if we're not showing up where our prospective customers are, and we're not servicing them the way that they need to be serviced.
I love that example because I think there's a lot of good things in that. First and foremost, every business has to decide where it is and where it wants to be. And then looking at the tools and the resources that are available to help get them there, and the people, which are I would call resource. But then I think about it also of just why did those customers, now he fell out of, like you said, they couldn't find you, that sort of thing, but were there other types of engagement, types of things that customers might be looking for in today? So even if they can find you online and they can see, okay, Dena Davis, Davis Hill LLC, that still doesn't mean that they're going to call you up and offer you a contract, right? So there's that whole art and science of that site. Is it a static site? Is it dynamic? And, what do you need it to do in order to get people to be interested in you? And so, again, I keep coming back because when we say marketing, and I'm just a very, very, very broad terms, everybody kind of goes to business cards and flyers. And another thing I think I've seen a lot of, maybe you can confirm, people have taken those same kind of collaterals and then that becomes part of the website, or those become other attachments and things. Is that something that you've seen as well, that the other types of materials become other parts of your site?
I have seen that, because in those cases, someone did not tell them, let's take a look at your existing clientele and your prospects. Let's get a good feel as for who they are, what their challenges are, and what do they need to see on the site. When you get phone calls, what is the information that they're looking for? Can we put that in, make that information available on the site so they don't have to wait to speak to you on the phone? So instead, because they're building the site for themselves and they did not receive assistance from someone that knows what it takes in order to convert leads with a website, they put what they know or what they feel needs to get out there, which is their contact information. Even like if you were to set up a Google free site, if you go into Google My Business and you don't have a website, it gives you the ability to set up a free site. Well, again, you go back to putting in there the basic information that you have, not necessarily the information that they need in order to convert to a client.
Right. Yeah, yeah, you're making me think. Like I said, I've got a lot of work to do on my website. But these are the types of things where, again, I think that as a business owner, you have, again, every part of the business you're looking at, having to try to make decisions. And sometimes you see things that other people are doing and you maybe replicate them because like, for instance, there's certain types of, kind of snippets, or you see, like, there was this, I think for a period of time, like, memes were really popular with certain text on them. And then it just becomes like a post of just some words, right? So it's like you kind of see these different trends of things that people tend to put out, and you're like, okay, I got to do that next. I have to do this next thing, or everybody's podcasting. I have to do a podcast. Like, so even just in terms of thinking about all of that is really fundamentally what you talked about. Like, what do your customers need or want from you?
Mhm.
And that's not always as easy of a question as we think, because I'm an informationer. That's what I call myself. I am an informationer. I give information. And so how do I then take all this information that I love and have to give, but make it meaningful for someone else? I mean, like, that's not quote unquote just building a website.
No, it's not.
It's a lot more consultation involved with that. All right. So as we're thinking about this and we're building on that again, let's kind of assume we're going to get in, we're going to have a much better, much more clear strategy on that very first step of trying to get your online presence established, which is your website. Now, what are some of the other things that we need to think about, Karen, after, not to say, like you said, we already said websites, it's not a perfect thing that you just do once and you walk away. But after we've gotten what we feel is a good establishment, what are some of the other things that we could start to take a look at?
Well, there's also the platform that you use. There are a lot of site builders out there. And I'm not against using the site builders, especially when you are operating on a very small budget. Have to be conservative. So in order to get that information out, it may solve, it may be the solution for you right now. But it's very important to identify when it no longer fits your situation, or it's time to step up because you're growing. So one of the things that is very important for every website to have is some sort of blog on the site. We've all heard it, content is king, because the search engines are looking for content to index so that they can serve that content up to people who are searching on the search engines. So what do you think happens when you write relevant content on your blog? So relevant to what they're searching for. As long as the platform that you're on is search engine friendly, and as long as that content, that blog article is optimized, it will rank pretty well. And it can generate a lot of traffic for you. Increased traffic leads to increased lead opportunity, increased conversion, more customers, more money, business growth.
Yeah, and as you think about that, if I'm a business owner, I'm a little bit. Yeah, you know me, Karen. I've got plenty of say. Like I said, I'm an informationer, so content coming up with it isn't always a hard thing. Trying to figure out how to package it and who it's right for, and the timing and the right approach. Is it a video? Is it a snippet? Is it a picture with a caption? Like, what is it that I'm starting to build here? Like, as far as to try to get these messages out. But I think about that blog site, because what are some ways that people you find are successful in keeping their content fresh and alive? And so before we get into that, I do want to get us a little bit of a break here because we're coming up on our next break. But let's pick that topic back up and we'll be right back with the business breakdown. All right. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Business Breakdown with your host, Dena Davis, and my guest, Karen Leonard from IGV. And we're talking about your online presence. And so, Karen, when right before our last break, we were talking about your blog site. And, I was just kind of getting into a little bit of the fact that some of us we got a lot to say. So we might have a little bit more content that can come out a little more easily than others. What are some ways that you suggest for someone to get started?
Well, first of all, if you're not able to write the content for yourself, hire a content writer. Okay, someone that can get content written for you on a regular basis. You discuss some of the topics that will benefit your customers. So again, it's tailored for their needs, right? Mm-hmm. And you let them write the articles for you, and that gets posted on your website. Now, as I mentioned, if it's optimized for the search engines, then it will rank really well. And if you're fortunate, it will also show up in the Google snippet. When you search, other people are looking for this and there's some questions, getting your article to show up in there is golden, because anything on the first page, especially higher up in that area, it will lead to increased traffic for you.
Oh, I didn't know that. We'll have to figure how we get on that list. But I love the fact that, again, I think that's very important for business owners to know. You don't have to write all this stuff yourself. You could actually hire people to write content. I think you could probably even repost other articles of things like, there's certain like Harvard Business Review's big and other types of Forbes and things like that. Those are other ways. But even before that, maybe you've got 50 hats you're wearing and you're going to need this. It's not something that you can just say, okay, again, my daughter's going to do this and, I'm going to be fine. Not saying that your daughter can't do a great job, but there's a lot more to it. And so just knowing that you can hire someone, I think is huge.
And a great content writing expert would know how that content should be written so that it's search engine optimized. Something else that you can do, Dena, especially if the ideas are coming from you, you would have been the right person to write those blog articles, but you're struggling for time, then grab your phone and record your thoughts on a recorder and give that recording to a content writer so that they can go off of that information, just add to it. Because generally with any blog article, you want about 300 to 500 words. Of course, you don't want all content on that page. You need some images with that as well. And also your headlines are very important. You want to make sure that the targeted keyword phrases are in the headings, the subheadings of that blog article.
Let me ask you a question on that, because this has actually just made me think of something. There's, I guess, kind of different ways to tap into what the customer's needs are. There's the way of being supportive, like, hey, I can help you solve XYZ. Or there's the, you know what, you're doing this all wrong, right? And I think sometimes, too, just struggling with the tone that you want to set with your customers. How do you see one style more successful over the other? Kind of, I call it more of the encouraging, let me help you kind of thing versus, you know what, this is what everybody does wrong. Do you see any advantages to either style?
It always pays to be positive. They're obviously looking for help. So you're basically showing them or boosting their confidence level in the ability to do it. Or maybe you are also educating them on how to go about fixing a problem. Now you're in the seat of a resourceful person. And that's really what you want to be through your blog content. You want to be a resourceful person.
Absolutely. And I think hiring a writer also, like you said, will help you to make sure that you're getting the right message, but then you're also getting into what we call calls to action, if that's okay. And so those calls to action can be a number of things. So maybe can you explain to our listeners, first of all, what that means, and then maybe what are some of the common ways that people will get in touch with you or engage with you after they've come to your website?
They're really actionable words that is associated with a button. It's the action that they're going to take. And to better illustrate it, let me give you an example of one customer where her blog article showed up in that Google snippet that I talked about. And they started seeing a sudden increase of traffic to their website. And it was going to a blog article that they wrote. And the blog article, while it was very informative, there wasn't really a call to action in that. So this company, they sell like a herbal tea for like menopausal symptoms and so forth. And when they saw that traffic coming to that blog page, what they quickly did was added an area towards the bottom, giving them the ability to try the tea. So just imagine in that blog article, they were highlighting all of the different ingredients and what it can do for you. So now that you have the ingredients, are you going to go and buy them and try to make the tea yourself? Who has time for that?
Yeah.
So they put a section right at the end for them to try the tea with a discount. That's the try the tea was the call to action, and it took them right to the site to purchase that tea at a discounted rate just to try it. That's how you make your blog article work for you. You've got the traffic coming to it. Now you want to convert those visitors, the interest that they have, to paying customers.
Absolutely. And, again, as you think about that, it's what do you want the customer to do? I think that's the biggest thing when I think about everything we're talking about in this discussion today. First and foremost, as a business owner, when you're talking about your online presence, I think you first have to think about what you do, how you present yourself to the world, if you'll say, again, if I'm an informationer, if I'm a, party planner, like whatever it is, you got to kind of know a little bit about what I do in my field of expertise. But then really just getting into what do you want customers to do after they go to your site? Again, a lot of people really just think it's, oh, I just need my phone number. They'll call me. Oh, I just need my such and such this. They'll send me an email. People don't do that. And like I even think about too, I travel a lot and you were talking about how Google follows you and looks at your local results. And when I'm in different areas, if I'm not really familiar with those businesses or don't know where to go, I will not engage with someone who does not have a website. I do a lot of spa treatments. I will not book with you if I cannot book online. Like those are just two of my requirements. Like I have too much. To me, the back and forth of trying to confirm an appointment is a hassle. If I can't go right to your site and you're a massage therapist, if I can't book you right from there, I'm not even calling you.
I feel exactly the same. And then there's one other factor, the reviews.
Yeah.
Do they have reviews? How many reviews do they have? What's a star rating? And just because they've got 2,000 reviews doesn't mean that you're going to do business with them. You're going to look at the quality of service. You're going to look at those star ratings, and you're going to read some of those reviews, because we realize that there are malicious people who may go out there and post a negative reviews, maybe to have a competitive edge or whatever their reason is. So we have gotten really good at kind of sniffing out those reviews as to figuring out if it's authentic or not. But we're going to pay attention to the reviews. So as you said, do they have a website? Can they do they allow for you to conveniently book online? And what are the reviews saying about them? Those are some of the things that you're going to look at and decide whether you're going to do business with them or not. It also helps if they have pictures. If you can see the inside of their facility, you want to make sure that that room definitely relaxes you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about too, even the outside, having a picture if you have a storefront, because when you're traveling, GPS will take you to the location, but sometimes you don't have the luxury of, looking at each and every address, or, it's a little storefront within a big plaza and you're like, oh, or it's on the third floor. Like these types of things, you have to think about it again as your customer. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned from you and others over my years is you have what you want to say, but it's most important that you think about what your customers want. And your website is no different. Your marketing is no different. Anything else you do beyond that website is no different. But if you don't start with that at the heart of your conversation, you've just got stuff and things. And then you're hoping that the stuff and things come together and then create sales.
Hope.
Hope.
Hope will not keep you in business.
It sure won't. It sure won't. I mean, it'll get maybe a little bit of motivation for the day, but it's not really good at paying bills long term.
We hope it would, but no.
Definitely. So you made me think about a story. I watch like I said, I'm an informationer, so I take in all kind of information. There was an episode of a show called South Park that has like the cartoon kids, and this was years ago, and I love this. It was an example about business models. Okay, long story short, all of the boys were experiencing situations in the middle of the night. They would go to sleep. In the morning, they'd wake up and their underpants would be missing. Okay.
Okay.
And they kind of shared, like, okay, like not their underpants on them, but like the ones that would be normally like for washing and things like that. Their underwear were missing. And they're like, somehow they get together, they all find out, like, oh my God, we're all having the same experience. What the heck is happening? Our underwear is disappearing, right? And I think, and so long story short, they set up this little sting. They're going to figure out what's going on, what's happening to our underwear. They stay up all night and they find that there are these creatures that come in the middle of the night called the underpants gnomes. The underpants gnomes take all of your underpants back to this big tree house that looks kind of like the Keebler elves, okay? Like how they all work in the big tree house. And they're literally all like that with bins and bins. And they got this whole operation of all these underpants that they have, and they're working them through the process. The little boys get into the operation. They're like, what are you doing? The leader breaks down the process, says, hey, this is what we do. Step one, here's our business plan. So the leader starts to tell the little kids their business plan. Step one, steal underpants. Step two, question mark. Step three, profit. That was literally his business model. Step one. Step two was a big question mark, and step three is profit. So I'm sure that's you've seen that model more times than we would like. Not necessarily just with underpants, but in other things in business. But that was just so crazy to me because I love that, because that's a lot of times how folks view what they're doing in business. It's like, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to make money, and then everything else in between becomes a question
Unknown.
mark.
Yeah.
All right, Karen. Well, thank you. We'll take another quick break and we'll be right back with you for a conclusion of our episode of the Business Breakdown. All right. Thank you for joining us once again for another episode of the Business Breakdown with your host, Dena Davis from Davis Hill LLC, and my special guest, Karen Leonard from IGV. And we are getting all into this topic about online presence. So if you think about, like, again, Karen, we just talked about, I always love that. I call it the underpants gnome, the business model of the underpants gnomes, because so many people, they go into that like, okay, I'm just going to build it and they will come. And, I don't think that's a good philosophy that you can live by in today's world.
Yeah, that's so true. It does not happen that way. And that's where your marketing, your plan comes into play. How are you going to attract your prospective clients? How are you going to service them? How are you going to convert them? So important.
Absolutely. Well, you just talked about something else, which we call a marketing plan. So
Mhm.
right now, we've just really just been talking about getting your online presence established. But even before that, there's a marketing plan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, of course, there are so many avenues of marketing. I mean, you mentioned earlier on, someone gets the idea of podcasting. Hey, I'm going to do podcasting, but does that satisfy the objective, the goal? Okay, so you have certain things you're trying to accomplish, identifying the right platforms. What is going to be your message? What platforms are you going to promote them on? What um, in which manner are you going to promote them on there? Of course, there's the organic approach, and then there's the paid approach, where we have to incorporate the paid approach, and how much are we willing to invest. And even with the paid approach, there's a certain process that you're going to follow in terms of capturing interest, nurturing that interest before trying to convert them. So there's a whole process that you're going to think through, and you're going to plan that out. And then you start working on the execution. But plan first.
Absolutely. So if I'm just getting, again, maybe I'm getting my arms back around and getting more focused on my marketing, or I really haven't had much to up to this point, what are some good ways for folks to start?
Well, again, you're starting to focus in on your customers, your potential customers. What are their challenges? What is it? And again, if you're planning like a marketing campaign to satisfy a need, well, what is that need? Even creating a persona. And I know we don't really have the time to go into that, but it's a great way to help you to understand your target audience. So creating a persona, and you can have multiple personas for this one service. Where do they show up? You know, that will help you to determine what platform you're promoting on, or you're advertising on. Okay. And also, what are their needs? That is going to help you to determine the message that goes into that artwork, because you want to make sure you're capturing their attention. And how are you going to nurture that interest? Not everyone is ready to buy right away. Some people have reservations. What are those reservations, and how can you address those reservations?
So you got to think like a customer.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not like a business owner, and you got to think like a customer. You've got to, and I love the fact too that you talked about creating multiple personas, because I think that for a lot of people, when you talk about getting started, or you start about, we all have an ideal customer in mind. And then what you're doing in creating that persona is really just diving in deeper to who is that person? What do they like? What do my services or products do for that person? And then how and where do I find them? So a lot of, I think, what we're talking about, some of it already may be known or intuitive in the way that you're operating, or it's already something that's a part of what you do, but it's just really sitting down and having that conversation. Or I write things out a lot, like you see all my notes here, but there's a science to that, because when you create something from your mind and you create a picture, because your brain stores everything as a picture, and so when you create that connection of your thought to what you've created on paper, it has a better form of retention for you. So, like, as a business owner, just me, like you said, just go through like these 6 or 7 questions you just mentioned and think through that. That's an excellent place to start in really figuring out, like, again, how what you're trying to do is you're not trying to get sales. Because I think that's one of the things I feel like when I say marketing, again, as a very, very, very broad term, people misunderstand marketing and sales. They're like, well, I put all these efforts out and I didn't get any sales because you didn't have a sales process. It's not that the marketing didn't work. The marketing got you out to over 1,200 people in 2 days, right? And it got your name out there, and it got them to know who you are and to see your products. That's the first part of marketing. But what you're talking about are sales and conversions, which, if you've not thought through that, that can be a very big miss.
Absolutely.
Sure thing. So, as you start, what are some of the things that you would advise for business owners to do? And what are some of the advice that you would share that makes your online presence most successful?
Well, first of all, if you have a website, you want to make sure that it's working for you. It's doing what you wanted it to do, right? And there are ways of measuring that. If you don't have Google Analytics installed, you should have that installed. It's free of charge, and it helps you track how much traffic you're getting to your site. Are they spending a lot of time on the pages, or do you have high bounce rate? What are the pages that carry those high bounce rate? And just to explain what a bounce is, we've all done it. We're Googling for something and we land on a site, and we feel that that site is not the right site. It's irrelevant to what we're searching for. And what do? We hit the back button. That's a bounce. So if someone is landing on those pages, there's a good chance they feel that way. It's irrelevant. That page is irrelevant to what they're searching on. So these are things that if you have Google Analytics installed, you can use it to help pinpoint certain areas that you may need to tweak on your website to improve the performance that you're getting, the conversion, to help you to make sure that you're satisfying the needs of your prospective customers and you're giving them a platform, your site, to convert them into a customer. So that's the first thing, your website. Is it working for you? If you don't have a website, you want to make sure that you take action and put one in place, especially during this pandemic season that we're in. You really need a website in place. And it's okay if you have to start with a site builder, but recognize that the site builder will not always be the right solution for you. For example, when you implement a blog, that site builder may not index well on search engines. So you put forth a lot of effort, and if you're paying someone to write that blog article, if it's not showing up on the first page, then what's the worth? You're wasting money. So if that's the case, you may have to look at moving on to a platform like WordPress and having someone build a proper website for you. Okay. Then also, you've got a website. You've made sure that you have some clear call to action. The content on there is speaking to the potential customer and it's resonating with them, and it's converting leads for you when you do have traffic. Now you've got to drive traffic to that website. And you do that by means of the search engines, and you can also do it by means of social media posting. There are platforms that when you post on it, they can link right to that article or right to whatever it is that you're linking to on your website, creating traffic for you. Another way to create traffic is your email list, sending out regular emails. It's content that they find resourceful, they need to see, and it's on their schedule. So if they want to see it on a monthly basis, if that's as often as they want to see it, then it's a monthly email. Or it could be an email that you're sending out every week. It really depends on the content. The weekly schedule does not fit every business. So it's a good idea to survey your customers to find out how often they would like that content after explaining what content you're looking to send out to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? Like I said, I've got all the notes here. I'm sorry I was didn't want to miss any of that because I'm going to have to give Karen a call afterwards and we're going to have to dive into my website. So I appreciate you on that short delay. But, again, as I think about it, I think you have to get firm in understanding that you can't just delegate your business to someone else, because sales and marketing are one of my two favorite areas of businesses. And I've spent a lot of time working in partnership with both of them through my role as HR, as support for them. And I just say that because a lot of times people have an idea or an understanding of what they think these roles do, and then you actually get into the science behind it. It's not like you can just put up a website and then just go post it out to all your friends. And then all of a sudden you're going to start getting, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business each month. It's, these are things where I think a lot of folks that are either coming in and starting businesses, or maybe even someone's like you were talking that have been in business for a while, just don't understand the change in how we search. I had a friend of mine, he was doing a dog walking business, and he wanted to start one, and I was trying to help him figure out how to get everything established. First thing I did was Google his name, mugshot. mugshot. I said, oh, what happened? Oh, yeah, that was just some such and such, such and such. It really wasn't a big deal, but it still was the first thing that came up when you
First
searched the
impression.
guy's name. Right. And the types of people that are going to pay for dog walking have what? Money to pay for dog walking. And they're going to Google you. These are the kind of people that will first and foremost, they're going to Google you before they even pick up the phone. And again, that to me, I think is the biggest takeaway that I feel is the most important is just understand that it is not 1999. It's not 2008. It's not even 2015 by way of in which you have to position your business for success. Now, does it mean that you can't eat and you can't ever get a client that, will pay you for your services if you don't have these things? It doesn't mean that at all. But I think for all businesses, there is a point where you will stifle your growth if you don't have the right systems and processes, the right expertise, the right marketing plans for where you are. And I'll just end with, I've worked with clients, and I had a client, she had a $10 million business, and it crumbled because of things that were not done on the back end. And this is what I call the back end, all the stuff that happens to make your business successful. All right. Well, Karen, we are at our time. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me on your show. It's an
Awesome.
honor.
Awesome. Now, if you could conclude with any, again, final comments, and if you could also please share your contact information with our listeners.
Absolutely. So, of course, as I mentioned before, pay attention to your website, pay attention to those Google reports, make sure you're showing up on Google. And when you do show up, your reputation is top quality. Make sure that you're responding to those reviews, if you have any questions, reach out to IGV. Our website address is www.igv.com. IGV Inc. Oh my, IGVinc.com. So that's IGVINC.com. We're also on social media. And of course, if you want to receive those marketing tips when you get onto our site, be sure to sign up so that you can get those marketing tips to help you improve your business right to your inbox.
Including videos, by the way, everyone. Make sure you watch those videos. Great, great content. Thank you once again, Karen. I so appreciate your time as always. And while we're done with this show, we're going to pick up our conversation later. So thank you all for listening to us for another episode of the Business Breakdown. Have a great day.